Yo, hello, I want to welcome everybody to the season finale of Versus, but no sad faces. We have been approved for season 3, and we've been hitting pretty much all season long about season 3, and season 3 is definitely gonna be a head bringer. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna really push some buttons, but we still gotta handle some business first, and that's dealing with this episode that's gonna end out season 2 of the geographics. Right now, I like dealing with the geographics and the whole safety and, I guess, security that one may feel. Now, being someone who really be into like space, science, all things related to science, space, astrology, cosmetology, all that type thing, right? It got me to thinking about safe. Like, when you think about safe, what do you consider safe? Like, you know what I mean? Like, some places may be more dangerous than others. Some places may be more safer than others. But is there a place that's considered totally safe? Is there a such thing? So I did some research, went to digging around. You know, I'm an inquisitive mind, you know what I'm saying? I like to kind of answer these questions that I ask myself from time to time. So what I ended up with, right, I wanted to narrow it down because obviously, you know, if you're doing this shit for like the world, you'll be at it all pretty much fucking, you'll never get to the end. So I said, well, I'm gonna just keep it down to the USA, to America, right? Now, based on the regions, I mean, you got your southeast with the hurricanes, Tornado Alley with the plains. You got the faults with San Andreas faults over there with California. Up north, you got all the glaciers and all of that, snowstorms. So my question to the public, in America, is there a place that's safe? Or what place do you feel like is the safest? Or which one would you prefer if you had to deal with the elements? Not including crime, not including the human element, just the United States of America versus Mother Nature. And this one is gonna touch a lot of different regions, and let's see how your region stacks up against Mother Nature and its onslaught of volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, lightning strikes, all of that. You know what I'm saying? We going there on this edition of Versus. See you.
There's something wrong. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Nah, I definitely agree with that shit. Damn, Beretta, man. Fuck. Bro, I know you got bites, man, but you gotta think sometimes. Shit. Some of this shit don't even call for. Bro, I was talking to my suckers. I've been only go listen, mirror on the wall. Who the really nigga in it?
For real. I got you brand new headphones, man, you know what I'm saying? I had to show them motherfuckers I was just kind of sporty, you know what I'm saying? Shit. Cause I like that, you know, the lightweight, the real, like, cool to me. Cause my other one, as y'all probably had seen on some other videos, them bitches is broke beyond repair, you know what I mean? But they got the bass like I like, so I ain't tripping. But back to what we here for, right? So let's start with the obvious, you know what I'm saying? We'll start with the reason why I'm at. Now, the southeast is the Gulf Coast, the Atlantic Coast. The number one threat in this region, obviously, is hurricanes, right? I mean, and from year to year, they tend to not necessarily form a predictable pattern, but places in these areas somewhat are familiar with what they're dealing with, somewhat. Meaning, if you live anywhere from Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Texas, I would say that whole region, earthquakes ain't necessarily gonna be something that scary you. But hurricanes is a whole nother story. Now, caveat, because you know in versus we do both sides, the pluses and the minuses, right? They generally only pose problems a particular time of year, which is hurricane season, obviously, which is June 1st all the way through what it is now, like to November, something like that. But you know, they said with global warming, I mean, you really can't put time frames on these shits, but that's when that water get warm. And I mean, you really can't predict where they gonna go, but if you live on the coast, you already know what time it is. But generally, outside of hurricane season, outside of like thunderstorms and real rainy weather, it's not no fault lines really in the southeast. It's very humid and very moisture in the air, so it ain't a whole lot of wildfires. I mean, it do be some here to there because it's a lot of lightning strikes. That's the other thing that, you know, to be all the way transparent, it do be a bunch of lightning. Like, I think Tampa is one of the like top places for like lightning strikes. And when I say lightning strikes, I mean like touch the ground. You know what I'm saying? Like, motherfucker strike your ass if you ain't careful. You know what I mean? But outside of that, that's pretty much the real threat. Like, no earthquakes really, no wildfires really. Now out there in that water, they do have what they call rip currents. Now, if you're a fisherman or anything, crab or shrimp, any type of occupation that have you out there on the water, then it's another level of hazards that come with out there on that ocean. Now, the Atlantic Ocean ain't nothing to be fucked up with. You feel me? But I mean, that's any ocean we can say that about. Difference with that Atlantic Ocean is that big got that Bermuda Triangle out there. Now, I like to back everything I'm saying up with facts, like scientific, something that could be like documented. But at the same time, not so much as paranormal or ghost stories, so to speak. But a lot of shit been missing in that fucking Bermuda Triangle now. Bermuda Triangle is a motherfucker. That shit is to be reckoned with. Okay, so outside of that, that's pretty much where your threat level is. So obviously, like, that's gonna be something that's gonna be a red flag for that region. Now, for the ones who feel like, okay, well, we'll escape all of that tropical stuff, we'll go inland. You know what I mean? We'll go like Oklahoma, you know what I'm saying, Arkansas, or fucking the middle of Texas, somewhere in the middle of the country. Like, you feel like, okay, well, you ain't even got to deal with no ocean. You know what I'm saying? You ain't really got to deal with no hurricanes. You know what I'm saying? Cool. For the most part, you don't, right? But in the middle of the country, you got to deal with the hurricane little cousin, the tornado. Because Tornado Alley, and I actually did a little research and learned a little bit about Tornado Alley, and apparently that shit is actually like shifting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, was like a little narrow pathway from Texas up through like the plains, you know what I'm saying? Like through the middle region, Oklahoma, up through the Dakotas. But they saying that shit is actually starting to like spread out a little eastern, you know what I mean? So long story short, that's where the trade winds from the Pacific meet the winds from the Atlantic. And I mean, it don't take a rocket scientist to put two and two together, swirl, la la la. Now, the difference between dealing with the hurricanes versus dealing with them tornadoes, at least with the hurricanes, you can see them shits coming. Like, you know what I mean? Even if you ain't frequent to like the news, or you live in a cave and you don't have no like, I guess, way to get no type of information. If you fuck around and go to the store one day and you notice all the water gone, all the fucking gas is damn near gone, It'll usually let you know that some type of major storm of tropical origins is coming. But a tornado, none of that. You feel me? Now, I did see where a lot of places where that shit is real frequent, they have these sirens. You know what I mean? That they'll, I guess, when one is spotted or one is touched down or one, maybe touching down, they'll like, I guess, blow these sirens, these loud horns. But we talking about maybe 20-30 minutes of preparation. You know what I mean? And the winds themselves are actually stronger than a hurricane. It's just a hurricane, that shit way bigger. You know what I'm saying? Think of it like this: the tornado shit is way more concentrated. You feel me? So it might not fuck up the whole city or the whole state, but the shit that it touch, oh, that bitch gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, that bitch gone. Similar to the hurricane, they got a system of, I think they go by like F1 through F5. Just like the hurricane got category 1 through 5, just that. But in those areas, that's suddenness, and it don't even have to really be raining for that shit. It's just a phenomenon of Earth, man. It's just like when the conditions is right, and they say here recently, they've been way more common than normal. You know what I mean? And that unpredictability of a tornado. Now you got these storm chasers who live for that shit. Them motherfuckers like hunt them bitches down, drive around, and chase them. I mean, my heart goes out to them because you definitely need the information. Just like with the hurricane, you got people that fly into those shits, but they have equipment and planes that are built just for that. These storm chasers doing that shit in their regular vehicle. I mean, hey, more power to you. But they are very dangerous. They cause a lot of damage, you know what I mean? But also, it's because of the flatness of that area. It ain't really a whole lot of shelter, so you really just pretty much gotta hunker down. They say the best place is underground, far from what I heard. Now, I don't know. I mean, I think I may have seen, like, maybe it was a baby from, I think, one tornado may have been around in this region. I remember when I was living in Capitola, I think it was a tornado that was touched down somewhere in Tallahassee. But they're not frequent in the area I'm from. But, I mean, they're a force to be reckoned with. So they got to have their respect. Alright, so let's say you ain't gonna deal with Tornado Alley. You gonna take that shit to the West Coast. You know what I mean? Now, in the Pacific, they don't have hurricanes. But they have, what that shit called? That shit cyclones or something like that. Typhoon, something like that. Either way, it's the same fucking storm. Now, it's gonna be a less occurrence over there just because of the way the earth spins. You know what I'm saying? Them shits generally go from motherfucking traveling west. You know what I'm saying? So like, they start from Africa going towards the motherfucking west. So if you already on the west coast, 9 times out of 10, that shit'll start, but it's gonna go out to the Pacific away from land. So it's not really as big a threat, but they have been known to happen. But that Pacific is a motherfucker too now, because that shit is the biggest ocean, different temperatures over there, and they got fault lines. Now that West Coast, I'm gonna tell you what's fucked up about that West Coast. Everything is over there. Everything. Like, just the state of California, you could catch a heat stroke, snowstorm, wildfire, earthquake, all in the same motherfucking state. I think the only thing the motherfuckers don't have is a volcano, as far as I know. I know that shit's a little bit up north. I know Washington got a fucking Mount St. Helens, and that bitch blew in like the 80s or something like that. But since we doing it as region, you gotta include that within the West Coast. So not only do you have to deal with the wildfires, the motherfucking like snowstorm. Like, think about that shit. To deal with a fucking wildfire and a snowstorm within the same region, what the fuck? But yeah, wildfires is like one of the most costly things over there, cause like that shit is like yearly occurrence, like burning up multiple houses. Cause that shit dry, you know what I mean? It's like a dry air over there. I don't understand cause they by the water, but I digress. But the fault lines is a whole nother trip, cause similar to the fucking tornado, at least with the tornado, you could at least see a fucking thunderstorm coming. With the fucking earthquake shit, it's just like, you just got to be on your toes. Cause by the time you know it's coming, it's there. Shit shaking. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna give you a scenario. You driving. You on a fucking bridge. Like, not no short ass, you could just fucking do 90 and get off the bridge. But like a long ass Golden Gate Bridge type shit. And an earthquake just hit. And ain't nothing up under you but some water. Boy, you fucked up. Even though the duration isn't that long, but the fact of the unpredictability makes up for that. And then add that on top of the wildfires, on top of they also can have fucking typhoons hit. It's just, I mean, that shit dangerous as fuck. You can take your pick. So I wouldn't rate that any safer than any other places that have been mentioned. But they do have fault lines, and none of the other places, as far as I know, have them fault lines. So you have to add the land fucking like splitting apart, all that, and then shit rubbing against each other. It's just a real hard place to think of being like in a building or being anywhere like structural wise. I mean, they already said they due for a big one. That's fucked up. You know what I mean? So the West ain't much safer than the rest. So for the geniuses who say they're gonna avoid all of that and go up north, right? Montana, Idaho, shit, what else up there? I think you got shit like, well, I already mentioned Washington, but I would consider that more of like West Coast. We're gonna talk like the whole North. Like you got Michigan, your fucking Maine, Vermont, Delaware, shit like that. Because hurricane and tropical systems need warm air, you don't really have to deal with that so much. Not real a lot of fault lines up there, so not many earthquakes, not many volcanoes. So far, it's seeming to be pretty straight. But you got a whole nother problem. When that winter time comes, the ice ain't no fucking joke. You got to deal with them glaciers and these blizzards. I never been in a blizzard, right? Never been in a winter storm, but as I'm doing my research, it said basically a winter storm is just a frozen version of a hurricane. Like, I can't imagine being snowed the fuck in. You know what I'm saying? Like, snow piled up to where you can't even like, you got to fucking snow power your fucking driveway. Like, you can't even get your car out or park because it's buried in snow. Now, what's crazy about that is you have to have a certain structural roof because of the weight. You know what I mean? Like, it's snowing, right? See, when it rains, water just kind of slides off. That's why we have gutters, you know what I mean? Kind of keeps the drainage going. But with ice, you know, ice tends to build up. Anybody who's done with a deep freezer or a refrigerator, you know, every so often you got to defrost that shit, because that shit will build up and that shit does get heavy. You know what I mean? I think it was like the old stadium that the Vikings had, that shit caved in through the ice. You know what I mean? And them shits can last for days as well. Not to mention, can you imagine the power going out and it's fucking 20 degrees below zero? I ain't know that. Not to be a hypocrite, I know I always said that I would rather be cold than hot, but it's levels to that shit, right? Now, true enough, I do believe it's easier to keep yourself warm than it is to cool yourself off. But hypothermia is a real deal. Because what ends up happening is, as a mammal, your core body temperature is like 98.6 degrees, right? Which is pretty high when everything around you is below freezing. You know what I mean? So if your core temperature ends up dropping, then you start dealing with internal problems that it's just hard to balance that. See, your body has mechanisms that's gonna cool it off. You can release heat, but boy, it's hard to generate that shit. Heat is just energy, and at some point, energy ain't free. You know what I mean? So the ice is one thing, but then you also got to look at it from the standpoint of being able to travel. Like the roads, the ice, the slickness, you know what I mean? It's like the highways. Some of those roads become unpassable, you know what I mean? I guess put it like this, it would be the northern's version of like a major flood, like down south, only it's more frequent. You get what I'm saying? It's like you have people that come through with snow plows that plow that shit. So that in itself adds another level of danger. So you just traded one like disaster for another. So would you consider that safer than all the rest? So let's get down to the summary. So to summarize all of the points we made, from the southeast to the middle of the country, to the west, to the north, seems like each region has something of natural disaster to be of some threat, right? So I was saving these for the last, so we're gonna go on and dish them out now. The state that has the most deaths, like not including crime, we just talking natural disasters, just nature, Mother Nature. Number one on that list, from what I read, is Texas. Makes sense. Texas south, is in the middle. It got a list of problems. Hurricanes. It has to deal with the tornadoes. Has to deal with a lot of floods. A lot of shit. You know what I'm saying? Second on that list is yours truly, Florida. You know what I'm saying? So no, like there's no winner there, because like shit, that's not something you want to like lead in. Now, to reverse that, believe it or not, one of the safest places, the safest regions that you can be in, believe it or not, and I found this shit kind of hard to believe myself, it's gonna be a little bit of dry, but they say certain areas of New Mexico and Arizona are actually going to be probably some of the least affected areas of natural disasters. No hurricanes, no fault lines really to speak of. It don't rain a whole lot, so it's going to be dry. But with that being said, it ain't a whole lot of violent thunderstorms, ain't really no lightning. They don't really have a bunch of vegetation, so ain't really no fucking like wildfires, even though it's hotter than the motherfucker. So all in all, like, those probably would be your safest places if you're doing the United States of America versus Mother Nature. So looking all that shit up was interesting, like, cause I actually learned a lot about that shit, and I was like, wow, who would have thought? Cause I would have thought all that desert, all that shit would probably like dry your ass out, but it don't. So that was this season of Versus. Making way for season 3. That'll be hitting y'all next week. And what, that shit, I mean, we're gonna put a TVMA rating on that motherfucker. Like, we gonna pull out all the controversial topics. We gonna really like hit y'all. Just to give y'all a little teaser, we doing the Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. We doing the Rihanna versus Beyonce. We doing all kind of shit for y'all college football fans. We doing shit, the Florida State Seminoles versus the fucking Hurricanes. We doing all that. So you've been watching Versus, man. It's your boy 100K, man. We trying to get everything back to normal. Rest in peace to Bree, you feel me? We holding shit down. We trying to keep everything moving forward. And I'm gonna see y'all on season 3. Yeah.